Hey, and welcome back to JBC English Learning Academy. My name is Leura, and I'm here to guide you on your journey to clear, confident, and natural English. If you truly love Jesus, like the video, subscribe to the channel, keep watching the video believing in Jesus, you will learn something good, and comment to let us know what you are watching. Your support truly helps this channel grow. Alright, take a deep breath, relax, and let's begin today's session. I want you to imagine this moment as if you are standing at the start of a long, beautiful road, a road that feels quiet and a little mysterious, but also full of promise. The sun is soft in the sky, not too warm, not too bright, and the air around you feels gentle, almost like it is waiting for your first step. This is not a real road you can touch. It is the road of your English journey, the journey that will help you learn, understand, and use powerful new words. And this story, the one you are about to hear, will guide you through that journey slowly, carefully, and with a warm smile, just like a friend walking beside you. You are not alone in this story. Our narrator, a quiet and thoughtful traveler named Daniel, stands at that same beginning with you. Daniel is someone who always wanted to speak English with confidence, but he never felt ready. He always worried he would make mistakes, that he would speak too slowly, that people wouldn't understand him. But today something inside him has changed, not a big loud change, but a small one, a calm one. He feels a gentle push to step forward. This feeling, this small push, is something we often call motivation. Motivation means the feeling that makes you want to do something. When Daniel feels this, he looks down the road and realizes that motivation is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet, like a whisper. As he begins walking, he speaks softly to himself, practicing the simple English words he already knows. Hello, how are you? My name is. He repeats them gently, and each word floats softly in the air around him. The sound of his own voice surprises him. He didn't expect it to feel so good, so calming. The road is surrounded by tall trees, the kind that move slowly when the wind touches them. Every time the wind blows, the leaves dance. Daniel watches them closely, almost as if they are teaching him something. The movement of the leaves shows him that everything, even the smallest thing, can change. And that small idea brings us to another important vocabulary word, adapt. To adapt means to change when something around you changes. Daniel realizes that if the trees can adapt to the wind, maybe he can adapt to new English words too. As the road continues, Daniel remembers the first time he tried to learn English many years ago. He sat in a classroom with a thick book in front of him. The book was full of complicated sentences, difficult grammar rules, and long lists of words he did not understand. He felt lost, overwhelmed, and discouraged. Overwhelmed means feeling like something is too much for you. Discouraged means feeling like you want to give up. But this journey is not like that classroom. This journey is slow, friendly, and made for someone like him. A beginner. Someone who needs English explained gently, with stories and feelings, not rules and pressure. As he walks, he hears the soft sound of water. There is a small stream next to the road, and the water flows in a straight, smooth line. Daniel feels calm watching it. He thinks about how water never forces its way. It moves gently, quietly, and still reaches the sea one day. This idea helps him breathe easier, and he whispers to himself, maybe learning English can be like water. Not fast, not stressful, just steady. This moment leads us to another useful word, consistent. Consistent means doing something again and again, even if it is slow. Daniel smiles because he knows he does not need to be perfect. He just needs to be consistent. As he walks farther, The road becomes wider, and the trees open up to show a long valley. In the valley, there is a small village. The houses are simple, with warm lights in the windows. Smoke rises gently from chimneys, curling into the sky like soft threads. The village looks quiet but alive, like everyone there is doing something peaceful, cooking, reading, laughing, or sitting by the fire. Daniel feels something strange as he looks at the village. Curiosity. Curiosity is another important vocabulary word. Curiosity means wanting to know more about something, and when Daniel feels curious, he walks faster, wanting to explore this village because he believes that curiosity will help him learn new English words naturally. Curiosity is the engine of learning. The closer he gets, the more details he sees. A woman watering flowers. A group of children chasing a ball. An old man sitting on a wooden chair, waving at him. Everything feels warm. Everything feels safe. Daniel whispers, maybe this journey is not just about words. Maybe it is about opening my mind. Opening the mind, this idea brings us to the word open-minded. Open-minded means ready to accept new ideas and new ways of thinking. Daniel knows that to learn English, he cannot hold on to fear or old habits. He must be open-minded. When he enters the village, he sees a small sign made of wood. It says, "Welcome, traveler." Words live here. The sentence makes Daniel stop. Words live here? What kind of village is this? He wonders if this is a place where stories grow on trees and vocabulary floats in the air like dust. The idea makes him laugh softly. He continues walking and meets the first villager, a young woman named Mira. She smiles warmly when she sees him and says, "Hello, traveler. You look like someone searching for something." Daniel nods shyly. "Yes, I want to learn better English. But slowly, gently." Myra's eyes brighten. "Then you came to the right place. We love words here. We grow them, we share them, and we use them to help travelers speak with confidence." She pauses and adds, "Confidence means believing in yourself." Daniel repeats the word quietly, confidence. He likes how the word sounds. Strong but kind. Mira walks beside him and begins guiding him through the village. She explains that every person in the village is connected to a special kind of word. Some villagers help people learn words about emotions, some about actions, some about ideas, some about places, and each villager has their own story. Daniel listens carefully, surprised by how simple and beautiful everything sounds. For the first time in a long time, he doesn't feel scared of English. He feels excited. Then Mira leads him to a small wooden bridge. Under the bridge, the stream flows gently, carrying small pieces of leaves. She tells him, every traveler begins with one important step, awareness. Awareness means knowing what is happening around you or inside you. Daniel thinks about this word deeply. Awareness. He realizes that before learning new words, he must first be aware of his feelings. He must notice when he feels confused, when he feels happy, when he feels nervous. Because awareness helps learning become easier. As they cross the bridge, Mira stops and turns to Daniel. "You want to learn many words, yes?" Daniel nods. She smiles. "Then remember this one too, foundation." Foundation means the strong base or beginning of something. Mira explains, a strong foundation makes every new word easier to learn. And your foundation is simple. Listen, feel, imagine, and repeat. Daniel repeats the words softly, committing them to memory. Commit is another good word. To commit means to promise yourself you will continue something and not stop. They continue walking, and soon they reach the center of the village. There is a small circular square with stones arranged neatly in patterns. In the middle of the square, there is a tall wooden post with 5 messages carved into the wood. Mira explains that these 5 messages guide everyone who comes here. The first message says, "Speak without fear." Mira touches the words gently. She explains that fear is normal, but it should not stop you. She then whispers another vocabulary word, courage. Courage means doing something even when you feel afraid. Daniel thinks about the times he avoided speaking English. He remembers the moments he stayed silent because he was worried about mistakes. Now he understands that courage does not mean you are not scared. Courage means you speak anyway. The second message carved into the wood says, "Listen with patience." Patience is another powerful word. Patience means staying calm even when something takes a long time. Daniel likes this message because he knows listening is hard for him. Sometimes native speakers talk too fast, and he cannot catch the words. But Mira tells him gently, if you listen patiently, slowly, and often, the sounds will become familiar. Familiar is another word Daniel hears. Familiar means something you know well. He repeats it softly, feeling proud of himself. The third message carved into the wood says, "Learn one word at a time." Daniel laughs. He used to try memorizing long lists of difficult vocabulary, and he always forgot them after a few days. But this message reminds him that small steps are better than big leaps. This idea leads to a new word, gradual. Gradual means happening step by step, not all at once. The fourth message says, connect your words to your life. Connect is another useful word. To connect means to join or link things together. Mira explains that when you connect English to your feelings, your memories, and your daily life, new words stay in your mind longer. The fifth and final message carved into the post says, share your voice. This message surprises Daniel. Share his voice? He never thought his voice mattered. But Mira smiles and says, your voice has power. Every time you speak, you grow. This brings us to the word express. Express means to show your thoughts or feelings with words. Daniel realizes how important expression is. When he keeps everything inside, his English cannot grow. But when he speaks, even slowly, even with mistakes, he becomes more open, more confident, and more connected to the world. As they continue exploring the village, Daniel hears different voices practicing English. Some people are repeating words. Some are reading stories. Some are speaking to each other calmly. The entire village feels like a living language. And slowly, Daniel begins to see that he is part of this world too. He breathes deeply and looks around, feeling something warm rise inside him. Hope. Hope is another B2 level word. Hope means believing that something good can happen. And with hope growing in his heart, Daniel steps forward into the next chapter of his journey, ready to learn, ready to change, and ready to become the storyteller of his own English adventure. When Daniel woke the next morning in the village of living words, the sky was still a soft silver color, the kind of color that appears right before the sun rises and fills the world with light. He stepped outside the small cottage the villagers had offered him, and the cool morning air touched his face gently. The village was quiet, but not in an empty way. It was quiet in a peaceful way, like everyone was slowly waking from their dreams. Daniel could smell fresh bread and hear the distant sound of someone sweeping the stone path. Everything felt calm, safe, and almost magical, as if the village itself was breathing. He stood still for a moment, thinking about yesterday, the messages on the wooden post, the lessons Mira shared, the soft sounds of English floating in the air, and the promise he made to himself to continue this journey with courage, patience, and awareness. That word, awareness, came back into his mind again. He realized that part of learning a language is being aware of the small things, the quiet details, the tiny moments of progress that often go unnoticed. As he breathed in deeply, he felt aware of his hope, aware of his fear, and aware that both feelings were welcome. Suddenly, he heard footsteps approaching softly on the path behind him. When he turned, he saw an older man with silver hair and kind eyes carrying a wooden basket filled with notebooks. The man smiled. "Good morning, traveler. You must be Daniel." His voice was warm and slow, like someone who had spent many years speaking gently to help others learn. Daniel nodded politely and replied, "Yes, good morning." The man introduced himself as Eldrin, the village storyteller. He explained that he taught travelers how to learn new vocabulary through stories, emotions, and imagination. Daniel felt instantly interested, and Eldrin noticed the spark in his eyes. He said, "I see curiosity in you, Daniel. And curiosity is one of the greatest tools for learning." Daniel felt proud that he remembered the meaning of curiosity from yesterday. Eldrin gestured for Daniel to follow him, and together they walked toward the center of the village. As they walked, Eldrin spoke slowly so Daniel could understand every word. "Today," he said, "you will begin learning words not from a list, not from a book, but from the world around you. Words grow here, not because we memorize them, but because we understand them." Daniel listened closely, taking each word into his mind like soft seeds he hoped would grow. Eldrin stopped near the wooden post Daniel saw the day before, the one with the 5 messages carved into it. Eldrin placed his hand on the smooth wooden surface and said, "These messages are the heart of the village. But there is something else we add for every traveler, a journey path." Daniel frowned slightly in confusion. Eldrin explained gently, "A journey path is a special trail where new words appear naturally as you experience them. Every traveler takes their own path, and the words you learn depend on your thoughts, feelings, and challenges." This idea brought a new vocabulary word to Daniel's mind: perspective. Perspective means the way you see something, your point of view. Eldrin smiled as if he could sense Daniel thinking. "Yes," he said, "your perspective shapes the words you will learn." This made Daniel feel something deep inside, a mix of excitement and responsibility. He understood that this journey depended on him, not on someone giving him a list. The path would respond to the way he felt and what he needed most. Eldrin guided him to a quiet trail that led away from the village toward a field of tall golden grasses. The field moved like waves when the wind passed through it, and Daniel felt a calm curiosity rising inside him. Eldrin said, "This is the field of expressions. Here you will learn emotional vocabulary, words that help you express your heart." Daniel looked at the field carefully, unsure of how a place could teach him words. Eldrin continued, "Every emotion has a word, and every word has a story. When you understand the story, you remember the word." Daniel liked that idea. As they walked into the field, the wind brushed past them gently. Eldrin stopped and asked, "Daniel, how do you feel right now?" Daniel took a moment. "I feel peaceful," he said softly. Eldrin nodded. Peaceful. A beautiful word. It means calm, quiet inside, free from stress. As they continued walking, Eldrin asked again, "And how did you feel when you first arrived in the village?" Daniel remembered the nervous excitement in his chest. "I felt uncertain," he said. Eldrin repeated, "Uncertain. That means you were not sure, not confident about what would happen." Daniel nodded slowly, letting the meaning sink in. As they walked deeper into the field, Daniel saw something unusual: small glowing lights floating above the grass, each one moving slowly like a tiny warm star. Eldrin explained, "These lights appear when a traveler feels something deeply. They carry words inside them." Daniel reached out his hand gently toward one of the lights, and as his fingers touched it, the word relief whispered into his ear. Relief means the feeling you get when something difficult becomes easier or when a worry disappears. Daniel repeated the word slowly. Relief. He closed his eyes and thought about moments in his life when he felt relief, like finishing a hard task or hearing good news after waiting a long time. The moment he connected the word to his own experiences, the glowing light faded softly into the air. Eldrin nodded. That is how words take root. You do not force them. You feel them. Daniel felt a warm sense of understanding rise inside him. He realized learning vocabulary did not have to be stressful or confusing. It could be peaceful, emotional, even beautiful. As they continued walking, Daniel noticed more lights floating around him. A soft blue light drifted near his shoulder, and when he touched it, he heard the word. As they continued walking, Daniel noticed more lights floating around him. A soft blue light drifted near his shoulder, and when he touched it, he heard the word determined. Determined means you are strong in your decision and will not give up. Daniel smiled because he felt determined now, determined to continue this journey no matter how long it took. Another light drifted by, glowing softly. When Daniel touched it, it whispered, grateful. Grateful means thankful for something good in your life. Daniel whispered, I am grateful for this place, and the light disappeared as softly as it came. Eldrin watched him with a proud smile. You learn quickly because you feel deeply, he said. Emotional vocabulary is important because it helps you express your heart. When you can express your feelings, your English becomes alive. Those words made Daniel think. He remembered how difficult it used to be to explain his emotions in English. When he felt sad, frustrated, or happy, he never had the right words. But now he was learning them through experience, not from a textbook. It felt natural. Eldrin guided him out of the field and toward a small lake with perfectly still water. The surface reflected the sky like a mirror, and Daniel felt calm just looking at it. This, Eldrin said, is the lake of understanding. Here you do not learn emotional words. Here you learn idea words, words that help you think clearly. Daniel liked the sound of that. He had always wanted to understand English, not just for conversations, but to express ideas and thoughts. As he knelt near the lake, he noticed words floating on the surface like small reflections. When he touched the water, the first word he heard was concept. Concept means a general idea or a thought that explains something. Daniel repeated the word slowly and watched its reflection ripple away. Eldrin said, every idea begins with a concept. To explain things clearly, you must understand concepts. Daniel nodded, understanding that words were tools, not just sounds. As he touched the water again, he felt another word, interpret. Interpret means to explain the meaning of something. Daniel smiled because he often tried to interpret English sentences when he listened to others. Understanding this word helped him see that he was already doing something important. Another word rose gently on the water: analyze. Analyze means to look at something carefully, to understand how it works. This word felt powerful to Daniel. It made him think of moments when he tried to understand why some English sentences were built the way they were. Now he had the word to describe that action. Eldrin sat down beside Daniel and said, "Idea words help you think. Emotional words help you feel. Together, they build strong communication." Daniel appreciated how simple Eldrin made everything sound. They stayed by the lake for a long time, exploring more words together. Daniel learned evaluate, to judge something carefully, assume, to believe something without proof, and justify, to explain why something is true. Each word felt like another brick in the structure of his language ability, and Daniel felt proud with every new understanding. Eldrin finally stood and said, "Now you are ready for the next part of your journey." He pointed toward a small forest on the other side of the lake. The trees were tall and cast long shadows on the ground. Daniel felt a mix of curiosity and nervousness. Eldrin explained, "This forest teaches action words, words about movement, change, and challenge." Daniel took a deep breath and followed him. As they walked into the forest, the sounds changed. The wind was stronger here, and the branches creaked gently above them. The path was narrow and lined with fallen leaves. Daniel stepped carefully, feeling more aware of every sound. The forest felt alive. Suddenly, a soft whisper brushed past his ear: navigate. Navigate means to find your way through a place or situation. Daniel repeated it and realized he was literally navigating the forest at that moment. The connection made the word feel natural. A moment later, another whisper came: approach. Approach means to move closer to something. Daniel smiled because he could feel himself approaching new knowledge with every step. Then came overcome. Overcome means to succeed after facing a difficulty. Daniel remembered all the times English felt impossible. Now he believed he could overcome those feelings. As they walked deeper into the forest, Daniel noticed fallen branches blocking the path. Eldrin said, "Move them aside. This is part of your learning." Daniel pushed the branches gently, and as he did, another word appeared in his mind: resolve. Resolve means to find a solution to a problem. Moving the branches felt like resolving a small challenge. They continued walking until they reached a small clearing where sunlight shone through. Eldrin turned to Daniel and said softly, "You have done well today. You have learned with your heart, your mind, and your courage." Daniel felt warmth rising in his chest. Eldrin continued, "Everything you learned today is not just vocabulary. It is part of your transformation." Transformation. Another beautiful word. Transformation means a deep change, a change that happens inside you. Daniel realized he was indeed changing. Slowly, gently, but truly. As they walked back toward the village, Daniel reflected on everything: the glowing lights, the peaceful lake, the whispering forest. He realized learning English could be meaningful, emotional, and alive. And most importantly, he realized that this journey was only beginning. When Daniel woke the next morning, a soft golden light was shining through the window of his small cottage, and for a moment he simply lay still, listening to the quiet heartbeat of the village outside. He could hear gentle footsteps, the distant call of someone greeting a neighbor, and the soft hum of morning wind passing through the roofs. Everything felt warm and patient. He stretched his arms slowly and whispered, "A new day, a new word, a new journey," and those simple words made him smile. He felt something he didn't feel before, a sense of belonging, as if this village of living words had already accepted him as one of its own. He stepped outside, and the moment his foot touched the stone path, he felt a soft vibration under his skin, like the ground was welcoming him. The village seemed somehow brighter today. Or maybe he was the one who had changed. He remembered Eldrin's words about transformation, a deep change inside, and he wondered if transformation could happen quietly, like the way the sun rises without noise. As he walked down the path, the smell of warm bread drifted through the air, and he saw children running past him, laughing softly, practicing simple English words as they played. One child whispered, "Morning," another said, "Happy," another repeated, "Thank you," in a playful sing-song voice. Daniel felt his heart soften. These small voices made the language feel alive, not like the heavy words he used to memorize from books. He continued walking until he reached the same stone circle where Mira first showed him the messages carved into the wooden post. Today, Mira was standing there waiting for him, her eyes bright and gentle like always. When she saw him, she smiled. "Daniel, today you begin an important part of your journey. You will enter the Hall of Stories." Daniel tilted his head in curiosity, and Mira laughed softly. "The Hall of Stories," she explained, "is where words become people, where vocabulary becomes characters, and where every traveler learns to understand English through the power of storytelling." Daniel felt excitement rise inside him. That word, excitement, was one he already knew, but today it felt stronger. Mira guided him through a small path behind the village center until they reached a large stone building covered in vines and morning flowers. The building was tall, with a wooden door that looked ancient but inviting. Mira placed her hand on the door and said, "Inside this hall, you will meet teachers who teach through stories, through memory, through imagination." She opened the door slowly, and Daniel stepped inside. The air in the hall was cool and carried the smell of old books and polished wood. The space was huge, with thousands of small lanterns floating above, each one glowing softly as if whispering a secret. At the center of the hall stood an enormous circular table carved with patterns that looked like old maps. Around the table stood several people, each one dressed in simple village clothes, but with something mysterious in their eyes, something wise, something calm, something ancient. Mira said softly, "These are the story guides. They will teach you vocabulary in a new way. Not with lists, but with experiences." One of the guides, a tall woman with calm brown eyes, stepped forward. "Welcome, Daniel," she said. Her voice was slow and warm. "My name is Selin. Today, I will teach you the power of narrative words." Daniel felt slightly nervous, but Selin placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Narrative," she explained with a soft smile, "means a story or the way a story is told." Daniel repeated the word slowly, narrative. It felt friendly in his mouth. Selin guided him to the large table. On its surface, small lights began to appear, forming shapes like tiny stars arranging themselves into patterns. Selin explained, "In English, there are words that help you describe actions, emotions, and ideas. But there are also words that help you tell stories. These are narrative words. As she waved her hand, the lights formed the shape of a man walking through a desert. The story began to move like a living painting. This man, she said, is searching for something important. The lights moved again, showing the man climbing a mountain. He is determined, she said, reminding Daniel of the word he learned in the field. Then, the man rested by a fire. He is exhausted, Selin whispered. Daniel repeated the new word softly, exhausted. Exhausted means extremely tired. Daniel imagined the weight of the traveler's steps and felt the meaning settle deeply inside him. The lights shifted again, showing the man looking at the sky. Selin continued, he becomes aware of something important. The word aware made Daniel smile, remembering it from his first day. The story moved on, showing the man finally finding a small glowing stone. Selin said, this moment is significant. Significant. Another word Daniel needed. Significant, Selin explained, means important or meaningful. Daniel closed his eyes, imagining something significant in his own life, like the moment he decided to start this journey. The lights faded gently, and Selin turned to him. Do you understand the story? Daniel nodded. Selin smiled. Good. Now you see how narrative words help you describe moments, actions, and meaning. Another guide approached, a short man with bright green eyes and a playful smile. I will teach you descriptive words, he said. Words that paint pictures. He snapped his fingers, and the lights formed a forest. Look, he said. The forest is dense. Daniel repeated, dense. Dense means thick, with many things close together. The guide pointed at the trees. The air is humid. Daniel repeated humid. Humid means the air feels wet and warm. The guide pointed at the ground. The path is narrow. Daniel repeated narrow. Narrow means not wide. The guide smiled. See? These words make your story clearer. They help others imagine the world you want to describe. Daniel felt something warm inside him, appreciation. Appreciation is another important vocabulary word. Appreciation means feeling thankful for something, understanding its value. Suddenly, another lantern floated down gently, landing near Daniel's feet. When he picked it up, the lantern whispered another word, anticipate. Anticipate means to expect something to happen, usually with excitement or worry. Daniel repeated the word slowly, feeling the meaning sink in. He realized he was anticipating the rest of his journey. Selin guided him deeper into the hall where another circle of lanterns formed around him. Each lantern whispered a word connected to storytelling. One lantern whispered, contrast. Contrast means the difference between two things that makes each one clearer. Daniel imagined a bright day and a dark night, a perfect contrast. Another lantern whispered, sequence. Sequence means the order in which things happen. Daniel nodded, thinking about how stories always have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Another lantern whispered, detail. Detail means a small piece of information that makes a story richer. Daniel began to understand how stories were built, word by word, detail by detail. One lantern glowed brighter than the others. When Daniel touched it, it whispered, foreshadow. Selin explained softly, foreshadow means to give a small sign about something that will happen later. Daniel imagined a story where dark clouds appear long before a storm, a little hint of what is coming. That made the word feel clear. As Daniel listened, the guides continued teaching through small magical moments. They showed him how one word can change the feeling of a sentence, how another word can add emotion, and how powerful a story becomes when vocabulary is used with purpose. Purpose, another B2 word that Selin explained. Purpose means the reason something is done. As the lesson continued, Daniel felt more confident. Each new word felt like another lantern lighting up inside his mind, making the darkness of confusion brighter and easier to understand. The hall itself felt alive, breathing with every story, glowing with every new idea. Daniel had never learned this way before, not through pressure, but through imagination. Not through memorizing, but through experiencing. Finally, Selin said softly, "Daniel, now you must create a small story of your own." Daniel froze. A story? Me? He felt nervous again. But Selin smiled gently. Yes, you. Because only by using your words do they become part of you. Daniel took a deep breath and closed his eyes. He imagined a road, a traveler, a mountain, and a rising sun. Slowly, he began to speak. His voice was quiet, trembling a little, but honest. A traveler walked a long road. He felt uncertain, but also hopeful. The path was narrow, the forest was dense, the journey was difficult, but he was determined. As Daniel continued, Selin's eyes softened with pride. For the first time, Daniel was not just learning vocabulary, he was using it to create meaning. When he finished, the lanterns around him glowed in warm gold. Selin whispered, "Well done." The other guides nodded in agreement. Daniel felt something swell inside him, pride. Another powerful word. Pride means feeling good about something you have done. And Daniel felt proud in a quiet, gentle way that warmed his chest. When he stepped outside the hall, the sun was high in the sky. The village looked brighter, almost sparkling. Daniel felt different, stronger, clearer, more aware. He realized that vocabulary was not just words. Vocabulary was emotion. Vocabulary was story. Vocabulary was connection. And with each new word he learned, he felt more able to express the person he truly was. He walked back toward the village center, feeling the soft stones under his feet, and whispered to himself, "I am learning. I am growing. I am changing." And with those simple words, he stepped confidently into the next part of his journey, ready for whatever story waited for him next. When Daniel woke the next morning, he felt a quiet strength moving inside him, like a small flame that had grown a little brighter overnight. He opened his eyes slowly, letting the soft morning light fill the room, and he lay still for a moment, listening to the gentle sounds outside his window. The village was waking up. He could hear a soft bell ringing somewhere in the distance, the sound of footsteps brushing across stone, and the peaceful hum of life beginning another day. He sat up slowly, stretching his arms and breathing deeply, feeling grateful for another day to learn and another chance to grow. As he stepped outside the cottage, the cool morning air touched his skin in a friendly, welcoming way. He looked around and saw villagers moving calmly through the paths, carrying baskets, sweeping steps, tending plants, and greeting each other with warm smiles. Everything felt alive but quiet, active but peaceful. The air carried the smell of tea leaves, fresh bread, and wet earth from the gardens near the village walls. Daniel took a long breath in and felt something he had not felt in a long time: clarity. That word, clarity, appeared naturally in his mind. Clarity means when things feel clear, easy to understand. He whispered the word gently, smiling at how naturally it came to him now. He felt clear about his purpose here, clear about the road ahead, and clear that every day in this village was a chance to learn words not with stress, but with heart. As he walked through the village, Mira waved at him from under a wooden arch covered with green vines. She was waiting for him, her eyes warm and bright as always. "Good morning, Daniel," she said. "Today, your journey continues in a special place called the Garden of Meaning." Daniel tilted his head in curiosity, and Mira laughed gently. She explained, "The Garden of Meaning is where words grow on memories. You will learn vocabulary connected to the deeper parts of life, thoughts, relationships, time, and experiences." Daniel felt excited and a little nervous, but Mira placed a gentle hand on his shoulder and said, "Do not worry. You will learn through peaceful moments, not through pressure." Daniel breathed easier and followed her along a stone path leading toward the village's edge. The closer they got, the quieter the world became. The trees grew taller, their leaves forming a soft green roof above them. Birds sang gently in the branches, and warm sunlight moved like soft gold through small gaps in the leaves. Eventually, they reached a tall wooden gate. Mira placed her hand on it and whispered something Daniel could not understand. The gate opened slowly, and a warm breeze moved past them, carrying the sweet smell of flowers, fruit, and fresh soil. Daniel stepped through the gate and gasped. Before him stretched the most beautiful garden he had ever seen. The grass was a deep, healthy green. The flowers were bright and colorful, blue, yellow, white, purple, but they did not look ordinary. Each flower shone softly, as if holding a small light inside. The trees were tall and strong, their branches full of glowing fruit that looked like tiny suns. Water flowed gently through small streams that cut through the garden like silver ribbons. And in the air, thousands of tiny glowing particles floated softly, moving like fireflies in slow motion. The entire garden felt alive, warm, and full of meaning. Mira guided Daniel forward. "In this garden," she said, "words appear when you reflect." That word, reflect, caught Daniel's attention. Mira explained, "Reflect means to think deeply about something, to look back and understand." Daniel repeated the word softly, reflect. He felt the meaning settle inside him, like a stone dropping gently into water. They walked along a narrow path lined with white flowers. Mira stopped beside a small tree with silver leaves. "Place your hand here," she sagged softly. Daniel placed his hand on the trunk, and immediately, the leaves above began to glow. A quiet whisper floated down to him. Memories. Memories means thoughts or images from the past that you keep in your mind. Daniel felt a warm wave move through him as old images appeared: childhood, school, family moments, quiet evenings. When he let go, the glow faded. "Good," Mira said. "You understand that this garden responds to your inner world." As they walked deeper, Daniel saw small wooden benches placed under trees. On each bench, a villager sat quietly, eyes closed, hands resting on their lap. Soft glowing words floated around them like gentle spirits. Mira whispered, "They are thinking deeply, and the garden is giving them the words they need." Daniel watched in awe as one villager touched a floating word that said insight. Mira explained, "Insight means a clear understanding of something, a sudden realization." Daniel nodded slowly, feeling that sometimes learning a language gives you insights into yourself too. They continued walking until they reached a small round pond at the center of the garden. The water was completely still, like a perfect mirror. Mira sat by the edge and gestured for Daniel to sit beside her. "This," she said, "is the pond of awareness. Many travelers learn important vocabulary here. Daniel stared at the water. He felt calm, almost meditative. Meditative means peaceful and deeply thoughtful, Mira explained. Daniel thought it was a beautiful word. Look into the water and think of something important in your life, Mira said softly. Daniel leaned forward, his face reflected on the clear surface. He thought about his family, his dreams, his desire to speak English with ease and confidence. Slowly, the water began to ripple. A word rose gently from the reflection: purpose. Daniel remembered learning this word in the Hall of Stories. Purpose, he whispered. Purpose means the reason for doing something. Mira nodded. Yes. The garden shows you what is already growing inside you. The water rippled again. Another word appeared: identity. Mira explained softly, identity means who you are, your character, your personality, your history. Daniel felt that word deeply. Learning English, he realized, was becoming part of his identity. The water rippled again. Another word appeared: identity. Mira explained softly, identity means who you are, your character, your personality, your history. Daniel felt that word deeply. Learning English, he realized, was becoming part of his identity. The pond rippled a third time. A new word appeared: perspective. Daniel smiled because he remembered this one too. Perspective is the way you see things, Mira said. Good. Your perspective shapes your journey. They sat quietly for a moment, letting the soft breath of the garden wash over them. Daniel felt peaceful and open, ready for more learning. Mira stood and guided him toward a path lined with golden flowers. This part of the garden teaches words about life's journey, she said. As Daniel walked, more glowing words floated gently toward him. One said, progress. Mira explained, progress means improvement, moving forward in a positive way. Another said, transition. Transition means a period of change from one stage to another. Daniel repeated each word slowly, imagining how learning English was both progress and transition. Another word floated to his chest: adaptation. Mira smiled and said, adaptation means adjusting to new conditions or situations. Daniel thought of how he had adapted to this village, this journey, this new way of learning. They walked until they reached a doorway formed by two large trees whose branches curved together. This is the path of relationships, Mira said. Here you will learn words that help you understand people and connection. Daniel felt a soft curiosity open inside him as he stepped through the tree arch. Inside, the garden changed. The air felt warmer and soft voices whispered from between the flowers. Two villagers sat on a bench talking quietly. As Daniel passed, he heard a word float toward him: trust. Mira explained, trust means believing someone is honest, kind, and reliable. Daniel repeated trust softly, feeling how gentle and powerful it was. Another word drifted past: support. Support means to help someone, to give strength or assistance. Daniel thought of Mira and Eldrin and how they supported him every day. Another word appeared: connection. Connection means the feeling of being linked to someone through understanding or emotion. Daniel felt a warm connection to this village and its people. As they walked deeper, Mira pointed to a small glowing fruit hanging from a tree. Take it, she said. Daniel plucked the glowing fruit gently. It felt warm in his hand. As he held it, the fruit whispered empathy. Mira explained, empathy means understanding how someone else feels and caring about their emotions. Daniel felt his chest warm. He remembered times when empathy had helped him comfort others. Another fruit whispered compassion. Compassion means kindness and a desire to help someone who is hurt or struggling. Daniel repeated compassion, feeling grateful for such a warm, human word. They walked out of the relationship path and into a wide open area covered in sunlight. A gentle wind moved across the space, carrying thousands of glowing particles. "This," Mira said softly, "is the field of time." Daniel turned in a slow circle, watching the lights dance around him. Mira explained, "Here you will learn words about past, present, and future, words that help you talk about your life." A glowing word floated near his hand, moment. Mira said, "A moment means a very short amount of time, one small piece of your life." Daniel thought of the moment he first entered the village. Another word drifted toward him, decade. Decade means 10 years. Daniel smiled, such a simple concept, but always useful. Another floated closer, era. Mira explained, era means a long period of time marked by important events or changes. Daniel imagined his journey as a new era in his life. A larger glowing symbol rose gently in front of him, future. Daniel repeated it softly. Future. Mira said, "Your future grows from the words you learn today." A final word appeared before him, destination. Destination means the place you are trying to reach. Daniel whispered, "My destination is confidence." Mira smiled warmly. As they walked back toward the garden entrance, Daniel felt full of peace, full of understanding, full of new vocabulary that didn't feel forced into his mind, but planted gently like seeds. He realized something important. The meaning of words grows from the meaning of life. When he understood his feelings, his memories, his relationships, and his dreams, the words came naturally. He understood now why the villagers said words live here. They truly did. They lived in the air, in the water, in the trees, in the reflections, and in the quiet moments of the heart. Before leaving the garden, Mira touched his shoulder gently. "Daniel," she said softly, "you learned many words today. But more importantly, you learned to listen inward. That is how language becomes yours." Daniel felt a warm wave of gratitude rise inside him. He whispered, "Thank you," and Mira nodded with a smile full of kindness. As they walked back to the village, the sky slowly shifted from morning gold to soft afternoon blue. Daniel felt changed again, not in a loud or dramatic way, but in a deep, gentle way that felt natural and true. He was beginning to understand who he was becoming, a learner, a thinker, a storyteller. And with every step he took, another small word echoed inside him. Grow, grow, grow. When Daniel woke on the 5th morning of his journey, the first thing he noticed was the sound of wind, a deeper, stronger wind than he had heard before in the village. It wasn't loud or frightening, but it carried a certain seriousness, almost like the wind itself was reminding him that today would be different. He sat up slowly in the quiet cottage, rubbed his eyes, and listened. The usual gentle sounds of the village were there, footsteps, voices, birdsong, but beneath those familiar sounds was something heavier, something steady and distant. He stood up and stepped outside, and the moment he felt the wind touch his face, he knew the day ahead would challenge him in a new way. The sky was a soft blue-gray, and clouds drifted slowly across it like thoughtful travelers. Daniel took a deep breath and whispered to himself, "I'm ready." That simple sentence warmed him. It was the first time he spoke those words without fear. As he walked through the village square, he saw Eldrin waiting for him, leaning on his wooden walking stick, his silver hair blowing gently in the morning wind. Eldrin smiled warmly when he saw Daniel. "Good morning, traveler," he said. "Today is the day you climb the mountain of expression." Daniel felt a soft tension in his chest. The word mountain made him feel small, but the word expression made him curious. Eldrin placed a gentle hand on Daniel's shoulder. Expression, he said slowly, means showing your thoughts, your feelings, your ideas using words. Daniel repeated the word quietly. It felt like a big word, an important word, a word he needed. Eldrin continued, on this mountain, you will learn how to explain, describe, persuade, and express yourself with confidence. Many travelers say this is the day their voice becomes truly their own. They walked out of the village together, following a long path that curved gently between tall trees. The wind grew stronger as they walked, but it felt steady, not dangerous, like a teacher pushing softly from behind. As they continued, Eldrin explained that vocabulary for expression is special because it helps people communicate clearly, share opinions, and speak from the heart. This idea brought a new vocabulary word to Daniel's mind, articulate. Eldrin smiled and explained, articulate means able to express your thoughts clearly. Daniel repeated the word slowly, articulate. He liked the way it sounded careful, confident, complete. After a long walk, the trees opened up and before Daniel stood the mountain of expression. It was tall, covered in strong stone and wide steps carved into the rock. Mist floated near the top, like a white scarf wrapped around its shoulders. Daniel stared at it, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement. That mix led to another word that floated naturally into his mind, anticipation. Anticipation means expecting something with excitement or worry. He whispered the word, feeling it settle into his thoughts. Eldrin said gently, do not fear this mountain. Every step teaches you something. Daniel nodded, though he still felt a small trembling inside him. They began climbing the first steps. With each step, Daniel felt the wind grow stronger, almost as if the mountain was testing him. The wind made his clothes flutter and his hair dance, but he continued climbing steadily. Eldrin said, this wind teaches you your first expressive word, resilience. Resilience means the ability to keep going even when things are difficult. Daniel repeated resilience, and the moment he spoke the word, he felt a little stronger. As they climbed higher, the wind carried soft whispers past his ears, whispers of words he needed to learn. The first whisper said, elaborate. Eldrin explained, elaborate means to explain something with more detail. Daniel imagined himself telling stories in English, learning how to elaborate clearly so others could understand him. He smiled softly at the idea. A little higher, another whisper came, clarify. Clarify means to make something easier to understand. Daniel repeated it and felt the power in the word. Clarify would help him speak more naturally, more confidently. They reached a flat area halfway up the mountain where the stone formed a wide platform. Eldrin told Daniel to rest for a moment. The view from the platform was beautiful. Daniel could see the village far below, its rooftops glowing in the soft morning light. The wind settled slightly, becoming calmer. Eldrin sat beside him and said, sometimes learning expression begins with silence. Silence helps you listen inside. Daniel nodded, understanding more than he ever had before. Eldrin asked, Daniel, how would you describe your journey so far? Daniel thought carefully and said, it has been comforting, inspiring, surprising. Eldrin nodded proudly. Very good. Now let me teach you some expressive words that describe personal journeys. Eldrin held out his hand, and suddenly small glowing symbols appeared, floating gently in the air between them. The first symbol whispered, transformative. Transformative means causing a big and meaningful change. Daniel felt connected to this word. His journey had been transformative. The next symbol whispered, enriching. Enriching means adding value or making life fuller and better. Daniel repeated it and thought of the Garden of Meaning and all he had learned there. A third symbol whispered, empowering. Empowering means giving you confidence and strength. Daniel took a deep breath. That was exactly how he felt today. When they finished resting, Eldrin stood slowly. Come, Daniel. The hardest part is ahead. Together they continued their climb. The air grew thinner and the wind louder, but Daniel felt determined. The next set of steps was steep, and Daniel had to use his hands to steady himself. As he climbed, another expressive word drifted toward him, emphasize. Emphasize means to show that something is important. Daniel whispered the word, imagining how he could emphasize ideas when he spoke English. The wind swirled around him again, whispering another new word, convey. Convey means to communicate or show a message or feeling. Daniel repeated convey, understanding how important it was to convey emotions clearly when speaking. Halfway up the second steep stretch, Daniel stopped to catch his breath. His legs trembled slightly, and he felt tired. Eldrin noticed and said gently, "This is the moment you learn the next expressive word, persevere." Persevere means to continue even when something is very difficult. Daniel held the word in his mind like a warm stone. He breathed deeply and continued climbing. They finally reached the second platform. Here, the wind quieted completely. The silence felt sacred, like the mountain was watching him. Eldrin turned to Daniel and said, "This is where travelers learn to express their ideas, not just their feelings." Daniel listened carefully. Eldrin said, "When you want to share an opinion, you use words such as these." Another set of glowing symbols appeared in the air. The first said suggest. Suggest means to give an idea or recommendation. Daniel thought of moments he wanted to suggest something but didn't know how to say it. Another symbol whispered, propose. Propose means to offer a plan or idea for someone to consider. Daniel repeated it slowly, propose, imagining how it could help him speak more clearly. A third symbol whispered, assert. Assert means to say something confidently and strongly. Daniel felt a warmth in his chest. He wanted to learn how to assert his thoughts without fear. They began walking toward the final stretch of the climb, a narrow path that twisted up toward the peak. Mist floated around them, cool and soft on their skin. The wind was gentle now, almost supportive. As they neared the top, Daniel heard a soft whisper again, artistry. Eldrin smiled. Artistry is expression with beauty, the art of using words in a beautiful way. Daniel repeated the word gently, wanting to speak English with artistry one day. The path grew even narrower. Daniel focused carefully on each step. When he reached the final step, the mist opened like a curtain, revealing the top of the mountain. The peak was a wide stone circle with soft light rising from the ground. Daniel stepped into the center, and suddenly the entire mountain hummed quietly beneath his feet. The air shimmered with dozens of glowing words, expressive words floating like stars around him. Eldrin said softly, "Speak, Daniel. Express your heart." Daniel closed his eyes. He breathed in the soft mountain air, and then slowly, confidently, he began to speak. "I feel grateful for this journey. I feel inspired by everything I have learned. I feel determined to keep growing. I want to express myself clearly. I want to communicate with confidence. I want to use English to tell my story." The words flowed from him like water, gentle but strong. And as he spoke, the glowing words around him brightened, responding to his voice. One word floated close to him and whispered, authentic. Authentic means true, real, honest. Daniel repeated it softly. That was how he wanted to speak, authentically. Another word floated close, sincere. Sincere means honest and full of true feelings. Daniel whispered it with warmth. A third word hovered before him, eloquent. Eloquent means speaking in a beautiful, clear, and powerful way. Daniel slowly whispered one day, I want to be eloquent. Eldrin smiled proudly. When the words faded, the mountain grew calm again. Eldrin placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. You have done well. Today, your voice grew stronger. Today, you learned to express your inner world. Daniel felt something move inside him, pride, peace, and purpose woven together like threads. They began their descent down the mountain. The wind was gentle now, the sky clearer, the air warmer. Daniel felt lighter, stronger, more himself. He realized that expression is not only about words. It is about courage, clarity, and honesty. And he felt ready for whatever the next part of his journey would bring. When Daniel opened his eyes on the 6th morning, the world felt strangely quiet, almost as if the air itself was holding its breath. He lay still for a moment, listening to the soft silence inside the room, and he knew, even before standing up, that today was not like the others. Something in his heart felt full, like he had been preparing for this day from the moment he first stepped into the village. He stood slowly and walked outside, letting the cool early morning air touch his skin. The sky was still pale, not yet gold, painted in the soft colors that appeared just before sunrise. The village was calm, peaceful, and still. Daniel noticed something surprising. The villagers were already awake, quietly standing in the square, waiting, like they already knew today was important. Mira stood among them, her hands folded softly in front of her, her eyes warm with quiet pride. Eldrin stood beside her, leaning on his walking stick, his face filled with calm wisdom. Daniel walked toward them and asked softly, What is happening today? Eldrin stepped forward and said, Today, Daniel, you will cross the bridge of mastery. Daniel felt a soft chill move down his spine. The word mastery felt heavy and powerful, and it made him take a slow breath. Eldrin explained gently, Mastery means a very high level of skill, when you understand not only the words, but the heart behind the words. Daniel repeated the word quietly, mastery, and it floated through his mind like a steady, warm lantern. Mira stepped closer and said, The bridge of mastery appears only when a traveler is ready to move from learning to living, from practicing to becoming. Daniel listened carefully, feeling every word enter him with quiet importance. The villagers began walking together toward the far side of the village, following a narrow path between tall trees. Daniel followed, his steps slow and thoughtful. The morning light slowly began to rise, turning the sky from pale silver to soft yellow. The wind carried a gentle, calming scent of warm soil, morning dew, and the first flowers of the day. The path curved gently, and suddenly the trees opened wide, revealing a breathtaking sight. A long stone bridge stretched across a deep valley. The valley was filled with white clouds that moved slowly like soft, drifting waves. The bridge looked ancient, carved with symbols and words Daniel could not yet read. At the far side of the bridge stood a tall, glowing archway. Light shimmered from it like soft gold falling from the sky. Mira whispered, This is the final step. This bridge teaches you not just vocabulary, but how to use language with confidence, emotion, and meaning. Daniel took a slow breath and stepped forward. As his foot touched the first stone of the bridge, a soft vibration moved under him, like the bridge recognized him. Eldrin said, "This is where you learn the last set of expressive, useful, powerful B2 vocabulary, words that help you communicate ideas, plans, reasons, and feelings clearly." The moment Daniel walked forward, the air around him shimmered, and the first glowing word appeared: summarize. Mira softly explained, "Summarize means to explain something important in a short, clear way." Daniel whispered summarize, imagining himself explaining stories in simple English. They walked further, and another glowing word appeared: interpret. Interpret means to explain the meaning of something. Daniel repeated the word slowly, letting it settle into his memory. A third word drifted toward him gently: justify. Eldrin said, "Justify means to give good reasons for an opinion or action." Daniel nodded slowly. He knew this word would help him speak with confidence in real conversations. As they continued, the bridge glowed brighter, as if guiding him. More words floated into the air around him. One whispered, illustrate. Illustrate means to explain something by giving an example. Daniel imagined how helpful that skill would be to illustrate ideas with simple, friendly examples. Another soft word drifted close: evaluate. Evaluate means to think carefully and decide the value or quality of something. Daniel repeated it with steady clarity. Yet another word floated near his shoulder: negotiate. Mira explained, negotiate means to discuss something to reach an agreement. Daniel said the word softly, feeling it was a little more serious, but important for real-life situations. The wind picked up slightly, and the bridge hummed again. The clouds below moved slowly like quiet waves. Eldrin said gently, "These words help you make decisions, express ideas, and understand deeper conversations. But the next words teach you how to connect with others." Daniel watched as 3 new glowing words appeared. The first whispered, collaborate. Mira smiled warmly. Collaborate means to work together with others. Daniel repeated it softly. He felt the truth of it. Learning English, in a way, was collaboration between him and the village. The next word said, coordinate. Coordinate means to organize different parts so they work well together. Daniel imagined coordinating plans with friends, speaking naturally and clearly. The third word floated up: contribute. Eldrin said, contribute means to give something helpful to a group. Daniel felt proud imagining himself contributing in English conversations someday. They reached the middle of the bridge. The wind grew stronger, but warm, not cold. The clouds below began to glow with soft golden light. Daniel felt something shift inside him, something deep, like his confidence was beginning to rise to the surface. Eldrin looked at him with kind eyes and said, "This is the part of the bridge where travelers learn how to speak with leadership." Daniel felt a small surprise move through his chest. Leadership sounded big, almost too big. Eldrin sensed his hesitation and explained, leadership is not power. Leadership is clarity, kindness, and courage. 3 new words appeared in the golden wind. The first said initiative. Initiative means the ability to begin things without being told. Daniel repeated initiative gently. The second word said strategic. Strategic means planned in a careful and thoughtful way. Daniel tasted the word on his tongue, strategic, imagining how it could help him plan better. They continued walking. The golden arch at the end of the bridge grew brighter. The air felt warmer. The sky was now a pale orange as the sun climbed higher. Daniel felt a quiet courage grow inside his chest. He felt ready. And then, the final set of words appeared, floating slowly, glowing softly, waiting for him to understand them. The first final word said confidence. Eldrin smiled gently. Confidence means believing in yourself and your abilities. Daniel repeated confidence out loud, and the moment he spoke the word, the air around him brightened, almost celebrating the sound of it. The next word floated toward him: fluency. Myra's voice was soft and warm. Fluency means speaking smoothly, naturally, and with ease. Daniel felt the words settle deep inside him like a promise. The last word that appeared on the bridge was brighter than all the others: mastery. Daniel already knew the meaning, but he repeated it anyway. Mastery, he whispered. Eldrin said, mastery does not mean perfection. Mastery means continuing with heart, even when mistakes happen. They reached the final stone of the bridge. The glowing arch stood before them, tall and beautiful like the entrance to a world filled with sunlight. Daniel looked through it and saw something surprising. He saw his future self, standing confidently, speaking English with clarity, emotion, and strength. Not perfectly, but naturally. Authentically. Fearlessly. Mira stood behind him and said softly, "You do not need to become someone else. You only need to become more you." Her words touched him deeply. He felt his chest warm with gratitude. He felt his fears melt away. He felt ready. Eldrin lifted his walking stick and touched the stone beside the arch. The bridge hummed one final time. He said, "Daniel, you have crossed the Hall of Stories, the Library of Reasons, the Garden of Meaning, the Mountain of Expression, and now the Bridge of Mastery. You have learned hundreds of words not by memorizing them, but by living them. This is how English becomes part of you." Daniel felt his eyes grow warm with emotion. He whispered, "Thank you for everything." Mira smiled and said, "Then step through the arch, Daniel. Your journey continues, and your voice is ready." Daniel took a deep breath, the deepest breath of his entire journey, and stepped forward. The arch glowed brighter, wrapping him in soft, warm light. For a moment, he felt weightless, like he was floating in a dream made of words, memories, and lessons. And then, very gently, the light faded, and he found himself standing on the other side. The bridge behind him disappeared slowly like mist in the sun. The sky turned a bright, peaceful blue. Birds soared above him. The world felt open and full of possibility. Daniel smiled, a soft, confident smile, and whispered, "I'm ready to use my English. I'm ready to speak my story." He felt the words settle inside him, strong and clear. He looked toward the path ahead and began walking with steady steps, carrying. When Daniel opened his eyes on the 6th morning, the world felt strangely quiet, almost as if the air itself was holding its breath. He lay still for a moment, listening to the soft silence inside the room, and he knew, even before standing up, that today was not like the others. Something in his heart felt full, like he had been preparing for this day from the moment he first stepped into the village. He stood slowly and walked outside, letting the cool early morning air touch his skin. The sky was still pale, not yet gold, painted in the soft colors that appeared just before sunrise. The village was calm, peaceful, and still. Daniel noticed something surprising. The villagers were already awake, quietly standing in the square, waiting, like they already knew today was important. Mira stood among them, her hands folded softly in front of her, her eyes warm with quiet pride. Eldrin stood beside her, leaning on his walking stick, his face filled with calm wisdom. Daniel walked toward them and asked softly, "What is happening today?" Eldrin stepped forward and said, "Today, Daniel, you will cross the Bridge of Mastery." Daniel felt a soft chill move down his spine. The word mastery felt heavy and powerful, and it made him take a slow breath. Eldrin explained gently, mastery means a very high level of skill, when you understand not only the words, but the heart behind the words. Daniel repeated the word quietly, mastery, and it floated through his mind like a steady, warm lantern. Mira stepped closer and said, "The bridge of mastery appears only when a traveler is ready to move from learning to living, from practicing to becoming." Daniel listened carefully, feeling every word enter him with quiet importance. The villagers began walking together toward the far side of the village, following a narrow path between tall trees. Daniel followed, his steps slow and thoughtful. The morning light slowly began to rise, turning the sky from pale silver to soft yellow. The wind carried a gentle, calming scent of warm soil, morning dew, and the first flowers of the day. The path curved gently, and suddenly the trees opened wide, revealing a breathtaking sight. A long stone bridge stretched across a deep valley. The valley was filled with white clouds that moved slowly like soft, drifting waves. The bridge looked ancient, carved with symbols and words Daniel could not yet read. At the far side of the bridge stood a tall, glowing archway. Light shimmered from it like soft gold falling from the sky. Mira whispered, "This is the final step. This bridge teaches you not just vocabulary, but how to use language with confidence, emotion, and meaning." Daniel took a slow breath and stepped forward. As his foot touched the first stone of the bridge, a soft vibration moved under him, like the bridge recognized him. Eldrin said, "This is where you learn the last set of expressive, useful, powerful B2 vocabulary, words that help you communicate ideas, plans, reasons, and feelings clearly." The moment Daniel walked forward, the air around him shimmered, and the first glowing word appeared,